Brian Reynolds, legendary designer behind Alpha Centauri, and he worked on, I believe, Civilization 2 as well. In the foreword for the Rise of Nations strategy guide, while quoting another legendary designer, unnamed, said this: "When you're entering a crowded genre, you have to look at the leading competition. Their weaknesses are your opportunities, and their strengths are your min spec." Well, there's nothing that more perfectly encapsulates Rise of Nations. Nothing. It's exactly what we're looking at here. This is a game that basically took Age of Empires 2 as a starting point and said, we can do better. Age of Empires 2, the RTS of the, what was it, late 90s or early 2000s? I can't remember. When did that come out? Yeah, 1999. September 30th. In 2003, not too many years later, is when Rise of Nations came out. I think the expansion came out a year or so later. Right now, we're looking at a game that's been out on Steam for a little bit. This is not new by any means. The extended edition has been on Steam for quite a while, and it still has some die-hard players. And there's a very good reason for that. Like, if we click quick, you can see there's some people playing here. Does it still say how many people are playing right now, total? I think it used to say that somewhere in this interface, but it doesn't seem to say that anymore. Because there's also like a quick join option. There are so many different possibilities for playing this game in multiplayer. And we're going to talk about a bunch of them. We're going to talk about what it means, what this game meant, what this game brought to the table. It had a fairly robust way of teaching you the game, for sure, that sort of worked you through the ages and introduced new concepts. It had this Conquer the World campaign that eschewed the idea of previous RTS games that said, hey, we built this primarily as a multiplayer game, but we are going to have a story campaign for the single player. Like in Age of Empires, you're playing as Joan of Arc in Orleans, and you're trying to fight off the blah, blah, blah. Those were good, but once you were done with it one time, you were done. The designers of this game said, let's try and make it replayable. And that's where you get campaigns like this. This is the one that shipped with the base game. The expansion added 4 new Conquer the World style campaigns, each with their own specific mechanics. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Here's a quick example. I'm hoping to do this just to get rid of... There we go. Just so we can see the rest of the situation here. The campaign was set up in such a way that you would start with just a single area. Everybody on the world would start with just a single area and a single army, and you'd branch out, and you'd choose places to attack. The longer you held an area, the stronger its territory strength. That means if an attacker attacks that area, you go into a skirmish game, a regular sort of multiplayer-style game, but as the defender, if you had a strong territory strength, you would start with like a miniature army and maybe even more than one city, and the opponent would only start with one city. Unless they brought extra armies or other special cards to the table to take out a very heavily fortified area. Whereas areas you just recently conquered were very low. It's got this metagame going on. There's resources for you to balance. You've got this tribute thing. Like you saw, the Russians were attacking me, and I was able to buy them off. They can use that money to buy bonus cards. They can use that money to build up their defensive value of their territories. And then there were various types of games that you could play. sort of mini games. One, if you're invading an area that's not controlled by an enemy player, it's just a barbarian wilderness, by an enemy AI, I should say, then you might get a thing where you're invading this barbarian territory and you have to kill a certain number of them to pacify the area. You might, if you're attacking an enemy that you're stronger than, they might be trying to escape, and your army is just on this map floundering around searching for enemies that are running away that you can kill, and the more that you kill, the more resources that you get. There are many different small skirmishes. You can make alliances in this map with specific enemies or friends. So here I have an ally. If you choose to attack an opponent, then your ally might join you. So if I wanted to attack the Russians and my friends here, the Greeks, were also adjacent with an army, their army would support me and provide reinforcements, and they would actually be in the battle as a second city, as a second player. If the Russians had allies, they would also get the same thing. It's a very complicated and interesting thing. And for some, it didn't necessarily replace the original sort of concept of those style story campaigns, but I think it worked pretty well. And it's got this persistent march through time, right? You start in Ancient Age, and then the next turn, I think, it enters the Classical Age, and then 2 turns later it enters the Medieval Age, and 3 turns later it enters the Gunpowder Age, and 4 turns later it enters the Enlightenment Age, etc., etc. So over time, as you would try to expand on the world stage, you'd be getting new types of technology to fight over and different things like that. And you can see in the New World there are not many forces because they didn't have that many New World nations at the beginning of the game. The Maya, the Spanish got all the way over here. Look at that. And the Inca. With the expansion, they added the Lakota and the Sioux and a bunch of other nations in the New World. But that's for a different campaign, isn't it? That's for the New World campaign that they added in the expansion. So anyway, the single player was very interesting. But the game at its heart was built around the multiplayer. And we're going to just play against the computer in order to, let's see, load a scenario or load a save game. There we go. So we could play as many different nations, and there's so many cool things to talk about when setting up the game. We're actually going to go to the multiplayer screen because that gives you more options than when you're playing against the computer, just to talk about how many options and how many cool options this game gives you. Again, you're starting from the concept of, at the time, Age of Empires 2 was the game to beat. And what does this game give you? Well, it gives you the tools to reduce tedious micromanagement. Remember, micromanagement isn't inherently a bad thing. I prefer games that really focus on macro management because it's a scale at which I feel more comfortable. And when it comes to micromanagement, I'm not very good. I'm not very fast. I'm not very interested in bouncing around the map 5 times every 10 seconds to check on these farms, then go over here and adjust the army that's attacking, and then go back over here and build 3 more citizens to start new farms at this next expansion base. I recognize that a lot of people enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not good at it. It was never my cup of tea. So I could play Age of Empires, I could play Command & Conquer, I could play Warcraft 2. I could never really play them very well. Macro management games were my cup of tea because they had a more leisurely pace, and they didn't require you to bounce around as fast. You could stay focused on something and know that the other thing that was going on off screen wasn't going to fall apart because you weren't there to micromanage it. I wanted the game to pick up some slack, and that's what this game does. For example, in Age of Empires, if you built a citizen to work a building or what have you, you had to give them an exact rally point. Say, you go to this farm. So you could queue up 5 citizens, rally point a farm, The first one to start working on the farm, and the other ones just sit around and go, what do I do? The concept of an automatically doing something useful nearby seems like it should be obvious. Hello, Bronze 5 Game Theories. But this auto-citizen, where if your citizens are standing around idle, they'll just start doing something useful. If there's a woodcutter camp nearby, they'll start cutting wood. If there's a fort that's being constructed nearby, they'll go start building that. Of course. Why not? Doesn't make sense. Then we can talk about the frustration and tedious micromanagement involved in those older style games of building a bunch of transports and then choosing the correct set of units to go into. Okay, I've got 5 transports here. Each of them can fit 4 guys on it. I've got 20 guys here. I have to choose them all, tell them to go into one, and when that fills up, then I have to choose them all again, go into the second one. Or I have to choose these 4 go in that one, these 4 go in that one, these 4 go in that one, these 4 go in that one. And that's a very important choice too, because you don't want your siege to be the first thing off the boat when you're invading another player's continent. It's just going to get chewed up by archers or cavalry or whatever that's on the shoreline. You need your frontline troops to unload first. So now it's this whole annoying thing where you have to select the individual units, and you have to do that as fast as possible, because the opponent is doing it faster than you, then they're working on their economy now while you're working on trying to fit these guys into boats. It's not fun. But this game said, no. Your units just turn into transports when they hit the water. Now, does that remove some level of strategic decision making? Yes, to some degree it does. Because you don't have to think ahead of time by saying, oh, well, I'm going to need to do this naval invasion. I'm going to devote some resources to this naval invasion and build a bunch of transports, right? In those games, that was a strategic decision you had to make before it was relevant. But I think this game does a decent job of getting around that. Your units will turn into transports all right, but they are basically tiny. They're built out of balsa wood. They're so easy to kill. So the strategic decision of, I'm going to need to cross this ocean, has to be build a navy to escort the troops, because if even one ship finds your transports, it can sink half your invasion force. Especially light ships were very good at killing transports. They were fast and they got a bonus against sinking transports. So you have to clear the sea. Your transports can't just soak up some damage and disgorge the units when they get there. They all just die to the first or second shot from enemy ships and enemy forts or towers on the shore. So you need to prepare for that. So it makes up for it. It removes all that micromanagement without significantly reducing that macro management, that strategic level gameplay. So that is pretty valuable. When you're being invaded by horse archers or an enemy, conquering force, and you hit the bell on your town center so that all your civilians run to the town center to take shelter. And then you forget about it because suddenly, there's a raid on the other side of your territory. And you come back 5 minutes later and realize you haven't been gathering wood or gold or food for the last 5 minutes. And you've crippled your entire economy just because you were distracted by something on the other side of the map. Now, get good, obviously. You should be able to pay attention to more things at once. Attention as a resource is what's important in those games. And yet, I want the game to do the smart thing, the no-brainer thing, right? If the enemy has left the area, just let him out of the town center and send him back to what they're doing. If the enemy comes back, I'll get a big alert that you're being attacked, and I'll be able to click a button and head straight there and send him back in if I want. But, come on. why shouldn't the AI do the thing when it doesn't involve any thought? If it's something you would do every single time if given the chance, you shouldn't have to do it. That's not a decision anymore, is it? And that just scratches the surface, and just looking at the options here tells me some cool stuff. So let's talk about the game settings. And we're going to actually jump into the game and talk more about the game itself. If you're not familiar with it, there's so many cool things about this game that to this day have not seen the light of day in the same game. Some pieces of it have been incorporated into some games, but I don't think I've seen all of them in any single RTS. It's insane. It's insane that they haven't. So let's go ahead and create a game that we're not actually going to launch here, a private game. And let's say, I don't know, it has 6 players. When you play a one versus, like a survival of the fittest game, where no teams, everybody against everybody, those can be interesting. If you want, everybody to be playing on their own singular team, everybody's trying to win. But they run into a problem in these real-time strategy games, in that if 2 players are fighting, the players that aren't fighting benefit. Fighting, when you have to, is important, but attacking somebody else is a waste of resources. If there's 6 players in the game, and one person isn't involved in the fighting just because they just so happen not to be involved, that player's got a pretty good chance at winning the game. And there's also king-making, like if you have 3 people gang up on 2 people, or 2 people gang up on 1 person, it benefits those 2 people individually to do that. You'd rather be on the side where 2 people are ganging up on 1 person than on the 1 person side, right? So everybody's still playing for themselves. They're playing to win, but it results in very unfair games where 1 player had no shot because they were fighting a 2v1 from the start. It just so happens that the person on either side of them decided to attack them, even if they didn't plan it ahead of time and they weren't, like, coordinating, right? So how do you fix that? How do you have a game where there aren't any teams, everybody's playing for themselves, but you don't have that problem? Well, it's right here. It's the Assassin game mode. You still have survival of the fittest if somebody wants to play it that way, but I can't imagine anybody wanting to play this if Assassin is available. It's a survival of the fittest format where you can't have any allies, you're only going to win on your own, but you are assigned a designated target. The Romans are supposed to attack the Mayans. The Mayans are supposed to attack the Lakota. The Lakota are supposed to attack the French. The French are supposed to attack the Germans. The Germans are supposed to attack the Romans. It's a full circle. You have 1 target, and there's 1 enemy whose goal is to target you. If you move into the territory of anybody other than your designated target, your units suffer severe attrition damage that cannot be mitigated by anything. And so you only have 1 choice. You can only attack your target. And at the same time, there's only 1 nation who can attack you. It's beautiful. And when your target gets taken out, you get given their target. So you have a survival of the fittest game that slowly whittles down until there's only 2 left, and then there's only 1 left. It's goddamn genius, is what it is. Hello, Goodman. This is really a retrospective. I will be doing a game against the AI here in a minute. I just want to talk about this game. This is me gushing about how freaking amazing this game is and how much I love it. Then they got a mode called Barbarian at the Gates. One player starts at a higher tech level against multiple other players, and they got to try to hold out for a certain amount of time. Then you've got Diplomacy. Everybody starts alone, but you can forge treaties, like trade treaties and alliances, And you can trade resources. And if somebody is attacking you and they've taken one of your cities, you can buy them off. You can say, listen, you win, take that city, I'll give you all these resources to not attack me. Or you could attack me and you could waste a bunch of resources fighting to take one more city. Or you could just have these resources for free. Declaring war costs you something. You don't start at war with anybody in the diplomacy mode. So you can form alliances, and it's got this whole, diplomacy aspect to it. Now that, of course, has something where two people can gang up on one person, but that means you didn't negotiate well enough. That's what it is. That's what this game mode is about. It's about negotiation and being able to manipulate people to do what you want them to do to help you. Now, you can win as an alliance if you wanted to, I believe. And so maybe you actually do forge a good, brethren forever, but maybe they backstab you because they got a better offer somewhere else. Because you're not as strong as this other player. So it's a very interesting game mode in and of itself if you want to, ruin your friendships. Then you've got the standard teams of 2 that cannot change. It's just a team game. You're on a team that tries to win as a team. Then you have team diplomacy. You can have preset teams with neutral nations available for alliances. You could have a two on a team, 2 on a team, and then 3 that are available to ally with one of those. So the preset, it's a cool thing. Cooperative games where pairs of players share control of a nation. So you take control of running the economy, I'll run the military. I'll micromanage the scout moving around the map, I'll micromanage our horse archers raiding through their territory, and you take care of building me new units and expanding our economy. I'll protect it and expand the nation's borders, you expand the economy, right? That's a cool idea, and they've got a cooperative version of all of these. Then you can do custom teams. You can do 3 versus 2 if you've got really strong players, etc., etc. Then let's talk about this beautiful, beautiful feature. I'm playing this game with 2 other people who rarely play RTS games. They play plenty of strategy games. Most of them are turn-based. A lot of them are board war games and stuff. They're veterans of the strategy type, military con sim. But they're not RTS players. They don't have an inbuilt, huge amount of experience playing RTS games. They don't really know the hotkeys, etc., etc., and they're not fast. They don't know the game that well, like I do for playing it for years back in the day and also recently. So I get to choose one of these settings and say, listen, I'm giving you guys faster resource generation. I get the normal resource generation, but everybody else gets 33% faster resources income, so that the game is balanced. Even though they've barely played the game, they've barely played RTSs, and I've played this game and I've played plenty of RTSs, I can crank it up to where they get 66% more resources than me. That's crazy. And it's very, very useful for those situations. It's one of the downfalls of this genre was how hard it is to get a balanced game. The difference between somebody who's played 10 games and somebody who's on their second game is astronomical. And the difference between somebody who's played 50 games and somebody who's played 10 games is just as big. And the difference between somebody who's played 200 games and then somebody who's played 50 games is also as big. So it's really difficult to enjoy these games. Hello, not Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain. So that's great. And when you're choosing your nation, you don't just choose a nation or the random. You can choose a random offensive nation, a random defensive nation, a random economic nation, and a random nation from the expansion pack, which was more valuable back when, the game first came out and you wanted to try out the new nations specifically. Each nation has unique abilities and a set of unique units that give them a flavor, a kind of way that they play that's kind of different than everybody else. Some more so than others. For example, the British play pretty much like everybody else, except they get a 50%, I think it's a, let's see, 25% increased commerce cap. That's what I was thinking of. So they get a better economy. It's just bigger than everybody else's. But they play generally like everybody else. They have some bonuses to various things like forts and towers and what have you, but they play basically like everybody else. The Lakota can't build farms. They just get food for each citizen scout and cavalry unit they have. That changes the way that you play significantly. Right? The Mongols do not receive as much attrition in enemy territory, and they receive extra food for how much of the landmass they control. And they get bonus ranged cavalry for free. If they're not raiding all the time, they're wasting their ability. It really slides you into a specific type of play. There's just so much cool stuff going on with the nation's special abilities. But let's move on. We talked about these. But let's talk about the different kind of maps. Look how many different kind of cool maps there are. Okay, African Watering Hole. It's a land map, but all these great rare resources lie in the center of the map. So everybody wants to fight over the center because of these great rare resources there. Amazon Rainforest, a constrictive map. There's lots of these forests and mountains and rivers that make it hard, choke points everywhere. Atlantic Sea Power, each nation gets its own landmass, and you're separated by an ocean. Makes it a little harder to rush, basically. Australian Outback, harsh desert or lush jungle surrounded by an ocean. So you've got an ocean around the entire outside of the map, making it sort of easy to sneak attack enemies that aren't expecting an invasion. British Isles. Nations start on a variable-sized islands with many, like the archipelago style, right? Colonial powers. 2 large continents with all the players starting on one, and the other continent is where you have to expand, basically, if you want to get a big enough economy. East Indies, major archipelago. Lots of island, lots of resources. East meets West. Each team shares its own continent. That's a classic of the genre. Great Lakes, if you want water and choke points, but you don't want ocean, like seagoing vessels to be 100% necessary, this is a great one. There's just big lakes in the middle. You can fish, and you can, if you've got a dock on your side of the lake, and they've got a dock on the other side of the lake, you might fight some naval battles, because in order to take that city, you might get some, larger dreadnoughts or destroyers or something that can help to deal with the land combat nearby. Great Sahara, very, very few choke points at all, and very few trees, but lots of oil. Changes the game significantly. Lots of mountains and mountain passes, but less in the way of rivers. Mediterranean is a classic with water in the middle. New World is everybody starts in their own cramped island, but there's one big new island in the center that everybody can go to. Nile Delta, there's a big river between everybody. Old World is classic, just sort of balanced. There's rivers, forests, and mountains. And then Southwest Mesa is very interesting because it creates like plateaus that are at different heights than other areas. And so instead of digging metal out of mountains, you dig it out of the side of these cliffs. It's kind of cool. Warring States is one large continent with everybody, but there's islands on the outside of the continent. That's a cool idea too. And we're barely through. Look at all the cool stuff in this, and we're barely through this. You can change the size of the map. That's kind of standard. Game speed, standard. Cannon time. Can we talk about cannon time? It's bullet time, but with cannons, okay? It's to help situations where there's just too much to do. An enemy is raiding your capital with horse archers or what have you. At the same time, you're fighting off another invasion by the main army, and you're trying to expand your 4th city. You need to get a fort built on it for defense and other stuff. You got to build up this other attacks force of your own that's ready to raid into enemy territory. There's too much going on. Hit the cannon time button. Bam! You get 15 seconds of super slow motion. Everybody gets a limited number of these. That's brilliant. It helps deal with those super stressful situations, especially for people that aren't APM masters, right? And if you have it on sort of a more custom game, we can look at the different types of game rules. Right now, it's got a game mods is a thing where you can get all kinds of workshop mods that you can use to play the game in different ways. But there's also all kinds of rules down here. A lot of people like starting with nomad starts, which means you have to pick the location of your first city very carefully. But small town is the standard start. Resources, you can go standard speed or faster resources. Death matches, you get infinite, really fast resources, and it's all about fighting, I guess. Low but variable resources, they may begin at different levels, all kinds of crazy stuff. I never really played around this. I found the standard resources to be the best. Technology, how fast the game advances through the ages. I find the games that are normal can feel like they're a little fast. Sometimes you go through an entire age or two with no fighting at all, really, or very limited fighting, and you kind of wish that there was more to it. Well, put it on expensive and slow. Instead of the game being about an hour long, it's about 90 minutes long now. If it's a really well-fought game, I should say, where both sides are about equal in skill. Or they're well-balanced due to the difficulty, right? So if you put it on expensive and slow, the game is longer, but you really get to feel okay, now we're fighting in the medieval age. And then when it advances to, the Gunpowder age, you can feel the difference. Now we're fighting with gunpowder units, and we're not just skipping over the Gunpowder age because we're already at Enlightenment or what have you. You could change how the map is revealed. Population limit. I never found a reason to lower population limit. Here's one. One of the most common things you would find in Age of Empires or games around that age is the title of the lobby would be called No Rush Until 20 Minutes, or No Rush Until 5 Minutes, or whatever. So they said, let's just instead of just making players promise not to do it and then having people break that promise and screwing it up, let's give them the ability to just say that. Hey, this is a non-violent game, right? Hey, this is a game where you can't attack anybody ever. Here's a game where you can't do anything until classical age. You can't attack until 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. Now, that non-violent one could play into the victory conditions, too. Because there are economic-style victory conditions. So the standard no rush was that. But there's, victory conditions economic. Well, whoever gets to an average of 300 income with all their things first wins. So that's like a how fast can you boom your economy? That's an interesting game. You wouldn't play that all the time, but it might be fun to try occasionally. And so that might work really well with, no non-violent game if you wanted it to be. So the rush rules were good. Now let's talk about rushing. What it did to games like Age of Empires is new players generally would not feel like rushing, right? They don't feel confident enough to just charge into the enemy. They don't know what the game is like yet. And yet, one of the most optimal strategies was to build forces ASAP, neglect your economy, and charge an enemy unprepared for you. You could just win the game in 2 minutes. And I was one of those people that would go on the forums and scream about how cheesy it was, and how lame it was, and how it took no skill, and this and that nonsense. I have since, and a long time ago, found the real understanding, an enlightenment with regards to that. Because either rushing is the optimal strategy and there is nothing you can do about it, in which case the game is broken, stop playing it. Because the optimal strategy is a degenerate strategy that everybody has to do. And that means no other strategies are viable, and that's a boring game, don't play it. Or rushing is a strategy that can be countered and will result in a better game overall. A tense game. One where you're not just playing yourself for the first 10 minutes. You're actually playing the opponent. And this game does a really good job of balancing the rush. A pure rush in this game looks like this. You build a barracks very early. You get your economy up to just 5 farms and 5 woodcutters, and then you stop building your economy and you start building heavy infantry. And you charge your heavy infantry across the map. Bonus points if you're playing as Japan, who I think get cheaper barracks units that are produced faster, and they do bonus damage versus buildings. So they are great with it. And I believe the Germans are also very good because do they get free They get unique heavy infantry, I think. That's why they were often used for rushes, if I'm not mistaken. But so the Japanese were common with it, but you could kind of do it with anybody. You build that heavy infantry, and you charge it across. Why heavy infantry? Because they killed buildings faster. And all you need to do is reduce your opponent's capital to 0 to basically win the game. So you charge it across the map. 4, 5, maybe 6 heavy infantry. And you get there, and if the enemy has not properly scouted you, they didn't see you coming, they don't have a barracks yet, they've lost the game. They just lose. Because you walk over to their capital, you attack it for 30 or 40 seconds until it's down, and then you win the game. But if they have scouted you, and they've seen that you built a barracks at the 2-minute mark, well then they know what's coming. And they build a barracks, and they build 1 unit. They build an archer. And with that, they can thwart your entire strategy. They can pop the archer into the city center, then pop it out the other side, shoot your heavy infantry. If the heavy infantry try to come around, then you pop them back in to the city, you pop them back out somewhere else. And the archers do phenomenal damage against heavy infantry. So now the enemy has crippled their economy, and you're just about ready to go to Classical Age. Now maybe you win. You have a huge advantage going into the later game. But now, now we get to the Sicilian level. He saw that you saw that he was building a barracks early. So he built a couple of heavy infantry, but then he also built a couple of light infantry to take out your archer. So he puts the light infantry on the opposite side of the city from where the heavy infantry, and now we've got the ball game, because now it's a more interesting and balanced game. And anybody can come out ahead. That's how this game works. Rushing is a high-risk, high-reward strategy that, if the opponent sees you coming, generally won't work. It will work almost 100% of the time against unprepared opponents, but against prepared people, it can be a viable strategy sometimes, but it can be a real tough fight. And then you're fighting all the way through classical, etc., etc. Both sides are trying to advance. That's a fun game. All right, that's rushing. Let's talk more about... You've got, in Age of Empires, of course, the 3, like you got early, middle, and late medieval, I think. Was there 4? I can't remember. The different ages that you'd go through in that game. This one gave you, what is it, 7? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ages. And most of the time you'd play through all of them. I don't remember too many games where you'd start or end at different ages. But how do you win? There's a bunch of different ways to win in this game. In Age of Empires, you remember, there was a wonder victory condition. Build the wonder and then, you know, protect it, and then you win the game. Well, that's boring. That makes wonders such this weird bonkers thing, because you could build, like, remember those wonders that were surrounded by like 6 layers of walls? That was such a weird strategy. Wonder victories in this game don't work the same way. You need a certain amount of wonder points more than any other player. So if you build a wonder and they build a wonder, you're still tied. If you build another 2 wonders and they build another wonder, maybe you're up by 3 points, but that's not enough to start the timer. If you build a bunch of wonders and they build 0, well, now they've got a problem. Now the timer starts. 4 minutes until somebody wins due to a wonder victory. Well, then you better start building your own wonder right now, or you better go take one of theirs. That's a cool victory condition. It allows you to play a defensive game and win that way. Build a bunch of wonders, build a defensive army, raid your opponent so they don't have the economy to build a bunch of wonders. You don't attack them. You play a defensive game. You force them to come to you. That's a very different style of gameplay than trying to conquer their territory. You can raid them all you want, and it's going to be necessary. If you leave your opponent alone and they're raiding you, you lose the game, right? You should still be doing something to them, forcing them to react to your ability, but it doesn't have to be a full-on offensive army there to conquer. You can have a defensive army and a set of raiding armies that are running through the enemy, forcing them to build towers and forcing them to garrison their workers, right? So that's wonder victories. Then there's a territory victory. It's like a mercy rule. If you've got 70% of the world's territory, or your team has 70% of the world's territory, the game's just going to be like, yeah, you don't have to fight to the death. It's over, right? They're not going to come back from this. You could say that was a little less. You could say the mercy rule is 65% if you really want, right? But 70% was the standard. And then, of course, if the enemy loses their capital, they're eliminated. Those are the victory conditions. That's the standard victory. Those are the standard rules. 10 wonder points. I think wonder points is based on the size of the map or the number of players, something like that. But anyway, you can play with special tournament rules. This was also available, I believe, in the other games at the time. It would hide the nation picks when you're in this screen because there were some nations that worked better against, oh, you're playing the Aztecs, I'm going to play the Mayans. But if you click this button, the opponents can't see what you're picking, right? They also can't see the scores. They can't see that you're advancing in an age until it's actually happened. And if you resign early, you don't get to see the entire map and tell your team about it. You could also require random nations and teams. So that's all the cool things you could do outside of the game. Look how many, there's a bunch of people playing. Let's actually jump into the game and talk about the mind-blowingly cool things that happen in this game. So we're going to do probably just a 1v1? That's sort of the classic thing, right? We're going to do a 1v1 against one computer opponent. We'll make them random. I'll play my favorite nation. The one I always played back in the day is the Mayans. The Mayans get their cities, towers, forts fire extra arrows, including cities without garrisons. Just like in Age of Empires, cities that didn't have anybody garrisoned inside of them wouldn't shoot at anything, like raiding cavalry. The Mayans are the exception to this rule. Their cities fire no matter what against enemies, and if you put units in it, the cities fire even faster. Cities are tougher. All buildings are 25% tougher, and non-wonders are 20% faster to build. And their buildings cost 25% less timber. So cheaper and faster and tougher. Harder, longer for enemies to take. More time for you to build up your army. So if an enemy comes to start sieging your fort down, that gives you more time to build up reactionary units. Oh, they've got a lot of heavy cavalry. Let me build a bunch of heavy infantry. Oh, I can see the army they've got to defend their siege weapons has very little heavy infantry. Let me build a bunch of light units to go around and kill the artillery. Light cavalry will be great for that. So we'll play on tough difficulty because to give it a thing. Cooperative AI. I don't remember what that option is. Will share control of your nation with you. That sounds bonkers. I never even knew that was an option. Anyway, we're going to play on a small map. We'll play Old World. The Navy has some cool stuff in it, but we're just going to play Old World just to focus on what there is to focus on. Okay. So, it's an Age of Empires time. What do you do to win a game of Age of Empires back in the day? Well, you crank out citizens. You queue up all the citizens. Why do you do that? Because the more citizens you have, the bigger your economy, right? Duh. Exponential increase. The more citizens you have, the faster you can build new citizens to build more cities, to build more citizens, to collect more resources. And in Age of Empires, I believe, you ran out of resources, right? Your capital, the gold mine, the wood would be gone eventually. And it would be too far away to collect. So you needed to constantly build more citizens to expand your economy or move them to a new place. No. That micromanagement is tedious and boring and doesn't require any decisions. Obviously, when you're out of woods, you'd move to the next area. Obviously, you would just build more units. It's a no-brainer. It's a strategy that everybody had to use in order to keep up with their economy. There wasn't that much balance. So how do you fix it? How do you make it so that the game doesn't require you to constantly, always, while doing everything else, building, cavalry, building your attack forces, building new cities, also be constantly building new citizens to expand your economy in order to keep up with your opponents who are doing the same thing. That's a lot of micromanagement that both sides have to do. That's just not fun. Because there's no decisions being made. Well, you put a cap on it. You say, you can build as many citizens as you want. You're never collecting more than 70 resources every 30 seconds. It's just not happening, bro. So, that's a big problem. Now you look at a situation, you go, okay, I've got this woodcutter camp. Jesus Christ, this is a terrible start. We started in like a desert. I thought we did old world. Some old worlds have desert starts, I guess. So, this commerce limit is a brake on your expansion. It goes up throughout the game, but it's still a brake on your expansion. It doesn't force you to constantly build more units, more civilians all the time. When you do a new jump to increased commerce limit, then you can focus on your economy for a little bit. We'll come back to this even more. So we'll get our scout, we'll make him a thing, and we'll send him out to explore the map. Let's do this, and then we'll start looking for the opponent. When your scout's moving around, I just gave him a bunch of specific spots to look on the map, right? And there are goody huts scattered around the map, just like in Civilization. You would find goody huts while you're exploring. That gives you a reason to explore. These things are called ruins. They look like a little Stonehenge thing. If my scout were to find one in another, lesser game, I would have to notice that, click the scout, tell him to go see it, and then tell him to go back on his route and give him the whole new orders again. In this game, if your scout, while walking, finds those ruins, he'll pause for a second, grab the ruin, then resume his patrol. Thank you. Thank you for not making me do the brain-dead maneuver. Of course I want that ruin. That's free resources. Thank you. It gives you the resources, by the way, equal to whatever is lowest. So I have the least food right now. If I ran into some ruins, it would give me 25 food or whatever. So, we're sending the scout out to look. We've got a source of metal here once we get to classical era. We can see that we're very short on wood. In fact, we have so few woods around our capital that our only choice here is we can build I'm going to slow this down here a little bit because we can build 2 more farms. Each city can have a maximum of 5 farms around it. And by the way, resources in this game are infinite. You don't have to come back and fiddle with your economy every 5 minutes because a gold mine ran out somewhere or your farms are exhausted, and if you forgot about it, then you're just losing food income for some reason. Yeah, we're hoping to have some more luck soon. This is not a great start. We'll see. So you can only have 5 farms. They never run out. And these woods never run out. It's just not a thing you have to worry about until later. So one of the things I can do is I can click this civilian. And if this is a real time, I could do it in real time too. I'm going to do it in pause time just for the start here. And I can set these up. And then I can have him go back to his farm. He's going to keep farming. And when the new units come out, they're either going to start going to the farm or they're going to start going to the woodcutter camp. Actually, I'm going to send to the woodcutter camp first because I want that to fill up ASAP. Now, this game has a way to slowly spool out the various limits in the game. So, for example, we're stuck at 25 population limit until we increase our military level. Each military level gives us 25 more population. And if you research ahead of your age, it costs you more. So, that's what military generally does. It also unlocks military buildings over the first couple ages. You can see barracks and stables and tower is here. Siege factory, forts, and air bases. For some reason, you can get air bases when you get level 2. And I think that's because in the Conquer the World campaign, when you're playing on fewer ages, like you start in modern age and you're going to information age, they want to unlock all of the stuff in the first 2 military unlocks. And then you get military-themed upgrades, technology research, throughout the rest of this, right? It upgrades your fort to a better version. It upgrades your towers to better versions. It upgrades your... it gives you research to improve your fort and all this other stuff. And of course, all of these also include population limit, etc., etc. The civic line, the most important thing the civic line does is it gives you access to a second city. It also pushes your borders out. If you are expanding your civic line more than your opponent, you get more territory. You'll push into their territory. There's a strategy in this game called the border push strategy. So where you push your borders hard by getting civic research and temple research and forts and fort research. And that way, when you go to conquer an enemy city, you're fighting in friendly territory right next to their city. That's a cool way to manipulate the game. Now, if they also build their temples and get their temple research and get their civic research, well, then you're not going to be able to do it as easily, but you're still going to be closer to friendly territory. That matters a lot. This also increased your city limit. You're only allowed to have so many cities. You can't just expand forever. You can't just put cities everywhere to claim the whole map. You can't. You get civic research, increases your city level. Also, I believe, unlocks temple to be built. The commerce research gives you the dock and the market to build. It also increases your commerce limit so that you could build more farms and have it be effective. And then we've got the science research. Now, science research, actually science is where you get a temple. It always increases the line of sight of your scouts, cities, and lookout towers, and increases the bonus for exploring ruins, and decreases the research cost of all technology by 10%. And it also unlocks all technologies that improve your economy and improve... it unlocks all other non-military technologies for the most part, I believe. So the science research is very important, and if possible, you want to do it first. But right now, because we're so poor on our timber here, I think the first thing we want to actually do is get a second city gone. So we're going to go ahead and civic level 1 research, and we're going to unpause it. Where's our music? There it is. I love the music in this game. There's so much music and it's so great. I'm also going to want to build a citizen. Now, where can we send them? Here's some... Okay, there's one. Potentially. There's some woods there. We're looking for a lot of woods for our second city. And now I really would like to get science because it would increase his line of sight. Now I also am going to want commerce research. Alright, that's good. Screw it, you know what? I think we got to put the city here, even though it's really a bad place for it. We're going to have to jump some cities. Maybe build the pyramids. We've got 0 wealth income. We've got to fix that soon. I'm going to build a market. We've got silver. That's a rare resource we want to control. Age advancement's cost reduced by 15%. Let's get that as soon as we can. It also gives us wealth and metal. Oh, damn it. I've got to build a market. But not until after you start farming. Cities give you plus 10 food and plus 10 wood. Always. So there we go. We're building a market. And our scout is out there searching. Now, unfortunately, this isn't a huge city, but we're going to still save up the food to build a woodcutter camp right now. It's not a huge woodcutter camp, but it was necessary to get it started as soon as possible. It's not an ideal location, but it's still a location. Now, you're going to be my... oh, not a market. I want a temple. For the next city. We're going to try the age jump here. Because I think we're going to need the extra city. Alright, so we're at 70 food and 70 wood. We're going to need one more farm. There we go. And when you build stuff, by the way, you get stuff. So when you finish a farm, you get a little influx of food. See? Boom, 20 food. And when you finish a woodcutter's camp, you get a little influx of wood. Now, where's our scout? What's he finding out there? Damn, there's definitely not a lot of wood here. This would be a great spot for a city. It's got some rocks, so we couldn't necessarily... But like here-ish? Maybe here-ish? We built the temple. Taxation, not very effective at level 1. Let's not spend the resources on that. Instead, let's get science to decrease the cost of these other researches. And I'm going to get civic level 2 next. So we've hit our cap on wood. Now we just need to build these 2 farms and we'll hit our cap on farms. So 60 went down to 144. Now why are these important? Why are we getting these before we're getting Classical Age? Well, because once we hit Classical Age, everything in here costs research. Ah, I forgot to do this. We gotta look for more of those rare resources. Here's another one we can get. Plus 20 wealth. That's brilliant. So they're at the Classical Age, but that's okay. We're gonna go for another city. Boom. Damn, I don't have a lot of good options for that. I gotta be at a city near a mountain. The temple research unlock. Yes, bingo. That's what I want next. It pushed my borders a little bit, getting the civics. This will push my borders even more. It might allow me to get a city across this river, which is where I want it. That's a tiny mountain. It's not super valuable. Oh, I don't have enough wealth for that. Ugh. Age advances are cheaper. That's good. So let's get the next city. 70 wealth. We're still waiting on it. Oh, because I built a merchant which cost me wealth, didn't it? Yeah, it did. I should build a caravan. Let's take a pause about here and talk more about what's interesting in this game. There are 3 resources that are basically the same. You know, we'll wait until we get classical. We'll talk a little bit more about resources and how the economy works and why it's great. Do we have any other? Yes, we found one way over here. That's in their territory. I don't think we want to get that. We don't want to spend the resources on that. Can we get this now? 70 wealth. We're never going to get it. Let's just go ahead and put the city right here. Can't do it. What about here? Yes, can do it. Oh, it's not great. It's not great. I'm not a huge fan of that at all. There's a button, by the way, tab, that lets you cycle through all the places that have research, which is a pretty cool thing. I want to get the next commerce level before we jump to medieval age. So we're about to jump to 150 for commerce. Why are we at 110? Oh. Is it this? Yeah, increases commerce limit by 10%. That's cool. All right, 96 food. You can go ahead and do this. Now, one of the cool things about this game is it creates little towns. It makes little towns. Why? Because you have to build these buildings, most buildings. Only like your military buildings can be built outside of town. So your market, your temples, they all have purposes. The market gives you plus 10 wealth, and wealth is really hard to come by. It's really hard to come by. We're going to get classical age next. Ah, we hit that's a good thing. We hit the limit, but we are increasing our military right now. We're going to build another market over here because you look, see? We've got a lot of wood income, but we have a lot less wealth. Wealth is hard to get, even when you do everything right. But the bigger your cities are, the more wealth you get. So we got to classical, and now we're going to go straight to... let's go ahead and build a university here. So we got the market. That gives us 10 extra wealth per 30. Now, I wasn't really paying attention the whole time I should have, because I found the enemy's territory and I didn't really look. And if I was playing against a player, I'd be in big trouble right now. I just spent a bunch of wealth on university graduates here. But we're going to start looking for a place to build a fort in the front lines. This looks like as good a place as any. I'll build a fort in a city behind it once I get the city limit. So we're building knowledge as a new resource. 191 is what we're looking for. We're at 152. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. By the way, I need to crank out a bunch of guys here. And I need to crank out a bunch of guys here. So, let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. Hello, Valiard. Is this a recording? No, it's live. I'm sorry, I haven't been looking at chat, because it's, you know, it's an RTS game. I don't have much time unless I'm hitting pause. Okay. There is as well 3 buildings with double production of a town. Right, I was just getting to that kind of a thing. So here's the deal. The resource system in this game is very interesting. It's asymmetrical. Your food comes from farms, of which you can only have 5 per city, but the territory doesn't mean anything, right? You can build them anywhere. Farms are always buildable. Woodcutter camps and mines for metal are very similar. They both are very territory reliant. You must have a particular resource. In this case, either woods or a mountain to build it on. The bigger the mountain, the more slots. The bigger the forest, the more slots. Right? Those are very similar in how they work. But metal only becomes available in the classical age. So as soon as you hit classical, like I just did, you gotta punch out a bunch of new guys to build your infrastructure. And you know, let's not be stupid. Let's go ahead and build a tower here. Because if I am going to raid this, I'm going to send cavalry and stuff around this way, which would force me to lose my biggest and most valuable metal mine. That tower will stop the raiders in their tracks. Towers are also valuable because if you don't have any towers, you don't have any research, and that's bad. Anyway, so back to resources. Food, 5 per city. That's the limit. You can build them anywhere. Wood and metal, very similar, reliant on the terrain. Wealth, always lagging behind. Because simply expanding, you can't just build a thing that generates wealth, like a woodcutter's camp. You can't just assign more citizens to wealth gathering. There are no gold mines. There are only a few sources of wealth. One is your market. Every market gives you 10 wealth, but obviously that's only really generating 30 wealth for me, right? So how else do you get wealth? Well, you get wealth with caravans. Caravans make a route between cities. And we can click this and we can see that we have 3 caravans. Each commerce level increases the caravan slot you can have, but you need a unique city layout. With 3 cities, you can only have 3 paths. Here to here, here to here, and here to here. There's no other paths you can have. So even if we increase our commerce level to level 8, there's no other caravans we can get. And each caravan generates an amount of revenue that is based on the distance and the size of the 2 cities that are being connected. Each additional building in each city, or maybe it's building type. I think it's each additional building inside the city limits increases the value of that city with regards to trade. So this is going between the capital and this city, and it's going to get a plus 20 once it finishes its initial route. That's because the capital has a bunch more buildings in it. And this one is going between these two expansion cities, which is only getting 13 because it doesn't have nearly as many cities. And I'm guessing, you click on this one, 18 between these two cities here. So that's a very interesting system. Now, what else does that do? What else does that do? It creates an incentive for your opponent to actually invade. It gives you a liability. These guys traveling between cities are vulnerable. If an enemy comes to raid the farmers, they can park themselves inside the city and they're safe. The city will shoot back and kill the raiders. But between cities, if I just send some horse archers in here and come around this side and just, you can see the roads. You can see the roads. You know where the caravans are coming. You just bring a raider around here. You park it there. When you kill an enemy caravan, you get like 100 wealth. And it cuts their wealth down. Now they have to spend some resources to build it back up. And caravans aren't expensive, but they're not free. And the amount of time it takes to establish a new route means that they're down on their wealth production for a long time. And you can see, I'm going to get this metal is going to just shoot through the roof. It's going to shoot way up towards 150. My cap is actually 165. But I am not going to hit the wealth cap maybe until at least I've got 4 or 5 cities. It's very hard to come by. And even when I got 4 or 5 cities, it's not easy. So anyway, back to other ways of creating wealth. So we talked about each market creates 10 wealth. Each additional building you build helps increase your wealth because it increases the size of your city. So your caravans are making more money. By the way, these rare resources with the merchants next to them, another very good target for enemy raiders because they are very easy to kill and they give some good benefits to raiders, good plunder. And then the last way that you get wealth is through your temple. You've got taxation. So right now I control 25% of the map is inside my territory. You can look at the mini map here. You can see I've got this blue area. That's 25% of what it represents. You can see in the bottom right it says 25%. And if I research taxation, which I'm probably going to do very soon, I get half of that in wealth income. 50% taxation rate means I get about 12.5 wealth per 30 seconds. That's not a lot. But every time I expand my borders, I get that little parcel gets bigger. And then later on, this taxation rate can go from 50 to 100%, and from 100% to 200% with further research later in the game. So eventually, taxation becomes a very big part of your wealth income. Early in the game, it's a very, very small part. It's barely better than building another market at this point, which is why I haven't clicked it yet. And I'm focused on building a 4th city as soon as possible, as soon as I get to Gunpowder, or Medieval, rather. Now, I talked about the age jump. The age jump is a thing that you do early in the game, because you'll notice once... we're talking back about resources here. Once I got to classical age, 2 new resources were revealed, metal and knowledge. Knowledge is required for research at the library. That's your mainline research. And I believe at the university it might require its own... No, it doesn't. That requires timber. I think it's only at the library is any knowledge used. So it's used to get all of these... to advance through the ages and to get these other things. But when you're in ancient age, you don't have knowledge. So instead, it just makes you pay through the nose for these things, right? For all of these things, you just have to pay a lot of regular resources. So normally, I would have just gotten to classical, and I would have to wait and build up a knowledge infrastructure in order to advance to medieval. But here, I've already done most of the work. I can just click the medieval button as soon as I get to 191, which is coming up pretty soon. So anyway, that's so cool. And by the way, we talked about how there's different ways to get all these, wood does this and farms do that and wealth is created this other way. Universities are the only ways to create knowledge. And you have to pay not only for the university, which I think gives you plus 10, but then each individual scholar inside the university. You only have 7 slots, so you have to put universities in multiple cities. And then you have to protect them. Because if your university's destroyed, all those guys, all those scholars, they just scatter and they become easy to kill. If they're inside the university, I don't think they can be killed. If I remember correctly. Although maybe they can be targeted by raiders. Anyway, right now, my goal is to get to Gunpowder and start building military units. And to do that, I'm going to build a fort and a city and some other stuff over here. Because I've got a pretty good economy going, though my metal leaves something to be desired. That is going to change real soon. There's the university. So now we can hit Gunpowder. We need more food because I just spent it all. Damn it. Let's get a military level because we're coming up on our cap here. And no, you know what? Can we get civic? Yeah, let's get civic and then we're going to go to Gunpowder. Here's my... I'm just going to hit this guy on Auto Explore because I want to talk while I'm doing it here. So he hit military. I didn't do the age jump very well. But... it is what it is. Now here's the next part of this. When you increase your civic cap, we talked about how these increase over the course of the game, right? When you increase your commerce limit, is what I mean to say. In another game, a lesser game, that would require you to start spitting out a bunch of more guys, more citizens to build more farms, to build more woodcutter camps, etc. Which is, you know, it's the case early on. But not now. Not once we got to classical. Because now we can build granaries. That boosts the output of all farms in the granary city by 20%. So I don't need to build a bunch more farms because I can just build one building. And then, when the future commerce limits go up, the granary has research that can upgrade all granaries to do better. So, in fact, probably shouldn't have built all these extra farms in this city. I probably am wasting some of my population limit here, but again, I'm kind of rusty, and I'm trying to focus about talking to you guys as well. So, let's continue. That, by the way, is the same with woodcutter camps in the lumber mill, with mines and the smelter, and oil wells to some degree, but we'll talk about that when we get to the industrial age. If we get to the industrial age, I have a feeling I'm not going to do very well in this game. Okay. We're going to build a city here, I hope. Yes, perfect. We can get this. This is going to be our forward city. It's not really going to have a lot of resource collection. I'm going to build allegiance to make sure my attrition is happening right now. How are we on mines? This is going to have 2 more guys. My metal income is very low. Oh, hey, these guys aren't supposed to be in there. They're supposed to construct it. There we go. Okay, so my metal income is probably caught back up. My wood income, however, is not. We've got to do that right now. So we're building a lumber mill here. Here we might build a woodcutter's camp. Let's build a lumber mill here first. Ugh, food. Now we're going to get medieval age, I think. We're going to get medieval on their asses, so to speak. Oh, I got to build the next... I can't build a fort yet. That sucks. 90, boom. I have too much. There we go. Now we're at the limit for our farms, and we're fine. You know what else we can do? We can probably send this over here and build a merchant. What does that do? Sugar. Now we can build a fort. I'm gonna build it right here in front of the. No, that's too close. Let's back it up a little bit. Inside the city limits. What that means is the fort counts as this building for the city because it's connected like that. So the city can maybe grow. Let's go ahead and build our senator. Or senate. And now we're ready for the next stage. Alright, so we've got the lumber mill, which is helping me quite a bit there. My metal working is still not ideal. We need at least 3 more here. We've got knowledge queued up. Let's get a second worker for that. 260 to increase my commerce cap. Now, because I've got so much... This is an interesting part that was added in the expansion, by the way. I have been following the development on Humankind. I don't know that it's a turn-based version of Rise of Nations. It's definitely a historical version of Endless Legend, which was their previous game. I don't know that I get the same exact feel of that, because it's definitely like a civilization. It's more like a civil. I mean, this was like a civilization game meets an RTS game. Everything's kind of everything else. It's incestuous. So one of the things they added in the expansion, they didn't really add much in the way of new unit types and things that go on the map. I think, in fact, they only added new nations, which is pretty big. New nations is good. New Conquer the World campaigns, and the concept of the Senate, which gives you a little tree to go throughout the ages. And you've got a defensive line and an offensive line. And the defensive line generally gives you economic bonuses and a free general that provides healing, bribing, and building defense bonuses. Then the next level is... So this one also gives you a commerce limit increase by 50. And you receive the Senator Patriot. Then you get non-library technologies are all 20% cheaper. And you get another general who provides production, building, and healing benefits. And finally, the CEO increases your oil income by 100 and provides defense, range, and healing benefits. So we're the Mayans. We're going to play defense. And on the other side, you get offensive generals. The Despot. Your military research and barracks research is cheaper. And the Despot doesn't give you healing. He acts as a supply wagon, making your actual ability to invade enemy territory much easier. It also increases plunder bonuses. So when you do destroy an enemy unit, it's better and faster. You know, the Despot seems like somebody that might be really good when you send on a raid with some heavy, some cavalry. And then you've got the next one. Stable units are cheaper and faster. And the King Patriot gives you supply, siege, and mounted combat benefits. And then Socialism gives you factory, air dock, and airbase and dock units are cheaper. And the Comrade Patriot gives you supply, combat, and assimilation benefits. So offensive and defensive. And you can switch from one line to the other. So you can do defensive early, then offensive, then defensive again if you want. Something like that. We're going to do the Republic, which is going to increase our commerce limit by 50. And we're going to give the Senator Patriot bribing and building defense bonuses. Seems good to me. And we'll send him up here. Because right now, I didn't build any military units, which is very bad. The AI probably could have exploited that, but the AI generally doesn't. It depends. They might be playing a less offensive-minded faction. I'm going to build another university over here in a more defendable location. There we go. We got our commerce limit going up there. And we're going to need to increase literacy. And here's what I was talking about before. Lumber mills increase output by 50% instead of 20%. And I don't have a granary yet, but I should. So we're going to do that. And then maybe we go for like a wonder type victory. That would be an interesting thing. But I'm going to put resources into the front line right now. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and build a barracks. And a stable. Okay, so we've got another university. We'll build some more scholars, because you can see the scholar limit's not anywhere near where we need to be. And we're going to need another caravan, because we can have 4 now. Vassalage would be very valuable now, because our wealth, our size of our empire is now 26. And we should probably also get religion to help push our borders more. All right, we've got this. Now here's where the age jump is very valuable, if I'd done it right. Every single line of research in the game requires the previous research in order to unlock it. So if we go ahead and click this, you can see logging industry is here, and it's unlocked at science level 4 at the library. But we just researched the previous version of this. If we got to level 4 and we'd never researched anything, we'd still have to research the prerequisite, right? We'd have to go from one to the next to the next to the next. Unit upgrades do not follow that path. I'm in the medieval age. I don't have to research classical age infantry. I can jump straight from ancient to medieval. So that is what the age jump is. Saves you all the resources on upgrading your military units. At least it's supposed to. So we're going to go ahead and what do we have plenty of? Timber and some wealth. So let's go ahead and build a couple of these guys. Just so we have something. And we're going to put them right inside the fort, the castle. Now, increase population limit. We don't need that quite yet. We might go to gunpowder. In which case the age jump would be even better. So let's go ahead and unpause it. Get some more resources. General, the senator can't fight. So what is the situation here? We need more. We've got granary and we've got granary research. There we go. That's going to boost up. Look how much my commerce limit is. It's insane right now. Can we get the pyramids? Increases my commerce limit even more. But maybe we want terracotta army. Colosseum seems like a good one. Let's go ahead and build Colosseum. Colosseum gives us 2 wonder points. If we're going for a wonder victory, that's valuable. Increases national borders by 3, and attrition to enemy units in your territory increased by 50%. And your forts and towers are cheaper. That seems pretty good. And now, that's maxed out. Can we build smelters? We can. Smelters work just like granaries or lumber mills in that they boost the production of the associated thing. Now, even with our food, have we boosted our food fully? No. We still have an empty farm here and there. But instead of building a citizen, yeah, we should build a citizen. But we should also build a granary here because it'll boost all the farms in this region. And I've got such a huge commerce limit, and my pyramids are going. Or no, I didn't get the pyramids. I get the Colosseum. That's fine. Does the Colosseum do anything for wealth? I kind of remember. No, it doesn't. Okay. Not enough timber. I do need more timber, so let's go ahead and build another one of these things. Because we're way behind on a lot of this stuff. And the only way we do that is getting more of these. And maybe we build a tower here to make sure they can't get anything around that side. Now, we've gotten all the rare resources we can get, except maybe this one. Let's send something out there. It might... Oh, we're at population limit. Okay. There we go. What does this one give us? It gives us 30 metal. Damn. That's a good income. I know we're at the population limit. Shut up. There we go. Population limit dealt with. And we're building some defensive units. We're building a wonder. I've got a pair of units I always use for building military, and a pair of units that I keep separate for building civilian stuff. So we're ready to go to gunpowder as soon as we get enough food. We finally hit our cap on the food. No, let's keep you on the food there. Alright, let's get 8th support. Let's see what we can do. Gunpowder. Come on, come on. 343. Let's do it. There we go. Now these are still increasing my this and this. So let's go ahead and build a lumber mill back here. There's his gunpowder. I'm getting there. And we'll build a smelter here as well. No, you guys... I'm sorry, I took them off the Colosseum by mistake. We're going to get science immediately when we get there. We've got every university is full of studying studious people. And we're going to build a university in this city too. Our economy is just that big. Now, we're probably going to choose this. Non-library technologies are cheaper. Yeah. Not yet, though, apparently. And we should probably upgrade all of these. Now, the cost... Here, we haven't talked about this yet. Ramping costs. Each thing you already have makes the next thing cost more. The next thing of that type. Every market I've built, the next market is more expensive. Every castle I built makes the next castle more expensive. Every barracks I build makes the next barracks more expensive. Every citizen I build makes the next citizen more expensive. Every heavy infantry I build makes the next heavy infantry more expensive. If you lose a bunch of heavy infantry, then the relative costs go down. Reinforcing that army becomes cheaper. So, you lose a battle, it's cheaper for you to remake that army, to rebuild that city somewhere else. For your opponent who won the battle, who captured a city, who still has an army, making that army bigger costs more. Now, these ramping costs do have an upper limit. I believe it's double the normal cost, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't think cities... I think cities always ramp up forever. Each city costs 50 food more than the previous city. It's genius! You don't need a special upkeep system like Warcraft had to try to prevent the rich get richer. Built in to the ramping costs. Anybody who's far enough ahead, their stuff costs more. That's just all there is to it. That's brilliant. I can't say enough about how brilliant that is. All right, so we're getting our Colosseum. We've got this massive economy. Our wealth is doing okay, but not fantastic. Let's continue our border push strategy here. Our universities are being built. I've got some units in here, but they're not upgraded yet, so we're working on that post-haste. 135, there we go. Now they're actually good. We're going to keep the stable units separated, and I'm probably going to build some light horse. There we go. Smelter. Now everything's doing better. University can take some of that. And, you know, here we are. Metal. I've got so much metal right now. What can I do with it? Well, I can frickin' sell it. I can sell it. There is a built-in market economy here. That's where wealth is really useful. A lot of things do take wealth. For example, heavy cavalry cost wealth and metal. And raiding forces cost timber and wealth. So I get it. Like, those things do cost stuff, right? But one of the main uses of wealth is to buy things that you don't have enough of and or sell things that you have too much of. So I have too much metal and not enough food and wood. I can go ahead and go, let's sell 400 metal and then buy, what is it, shift plus this, shift plus that, to buy 100 of each of those. It's brilliant! I forgot what else militia does. The militia research can cause your civilians to become militia, which gives them extra damage and hit points and armor, increases the line of sight of ordinary citizens, increases tower range and line of sight. That's the valuable one. Increases some other stuff too. So let's probably throw that in there. Now, 6th support. I was going to have them build something else. Let's see. Ah, a lookout tower. I don't remember what I bound that to. Observation post. Shift Z, that's right. Let's build a couple of them on the borders so that we can see the enemy coming, but also... Ah, damn. Also to see spies coming. And I'm going to build some spies. So we didn't actually really look what this guy does. So the Senator, buildings in radius gets 5 armor, and buildings also heal in his radius. Okay. The next one I think gives production bonuses. It makes you produce units faster. So we're going to go ahead and raid the enemy. Let's first send in a spy to find stuff. Let's send in a spy over here too. Send in a couple of spies. Oh, hello. Well, we found them. We might be in trouble here. Oh, those guys need to not be there. What can we do? Can we take and capture? Let's just bribe one of them. Oh god, I'm out of population limit. Quickly find the research. The library research. There we go. So my fort is taking damage here. Let's go ahead and send everybody out. Go. I'm going to send a light cavalry around to try to hit the enemy's supply wagon. And the trebuchet. There we go. Okay, we stopped him. Just barely. So light cavalry is going to be 4. Now I can go back to building my horse archers. Oh, elite light cavalry. Hit him over here. Can we talk about some other stuff too? Do this. Spies, go! So we've got a nice little group of light cavalry, which is very good for defense. Here's my raiding cavalry. I'm going to actually start engaging the enemy. And I'm going to send, let's see. Let's go ahead and do this and this and this, and that's good. Enlightenment Age, we're already headed there. So here's a cool thing. When you're choosing a rally point for your buildings, right, that's a common thing that you'd have in games like this. If you choose a rally point on top of a unit that has a control group, it will automatically join that control group. That's amazing! Thomas, they do have the extended edition. They've already got it. Now, Age of Empires has like the HD edition, but the extended edition works, and it's got a multiplayer that's functional, and there's a lot of people playing it. That's what I'm playing right now, is the extended edition, the one that's on Steam, that was updated to be playable on machines that are not running Windows 98. Or Windows XP, I guess. So we're going to go do this. So we've got our own little army here. And we're going to send them in to danger. And one of the cool things spies can do, and this is brilliant, by the way, is they can put an informant inside an enemy structure. And what does that do? It gives me line of sight from that structure. I probably should have done it on the city. But how does one get rid of the informant? How does one even know that there's an informant in a city? Well, you could have your explorer, your scout, walk around, because scouts can see informants. They can counter espionage, counterintelligence. But this building that my informant is in will blink my color every 30 seconds or so. So if you see one of your buildings blinking a weird color, just real quick, bloop, that's how you know there's an informant in there. It's a brilliantly little thing. It's not something you're going to necessarily see all the time, but you might catch it while you're coming by and go, there's an informant in there. They can see what I'm doing. So it looks like the AI has their farms well protected over here. Oh, a small city being built. Ho-ho! I don't think so, Mr. Citizen. Get him. Don't let him out of there. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't, let's put all these guys here in group 1. These guys are taking attrition damage, which is unfortunate. Aha! Supply. That'll help. Aha! We found one of their metal their metal mines, so we can slow that down. Meanwhile, back here, we want our guys to find the right next wonder to build. Angkor Wat. Metal rate increased. I like Versailles. It's also worth 3 wonder points. Gets a little closer. So let's go ahead and put Versailles right over here. All right, so we apparently have driveway people here for some reason. Is that an enemy scout? Go get him. Trying to get our driveway sealed. So here we go. Our cavalry are coming through, and he hid his units inside his city, which is going to lower his metal income significantly. So I'm bringing my cavalry back to be near my president to get some healing. I put some units over here because I was going to build a city, and now we've got to do it. Herbal lore increases healing. Oh, and line of sight increase. That's pretty valuable. Patriotism and Minutemen would be good too. Let's go ahead and get the new research here once we have the opportunity. We don't have the resources there. Okay, so these guys are healing up, albeit fairly slowly. But we will have better stuff for them. Now, where's my spies? There's my spy. Let's go ahead and put an informant here. Where's my other spy? I know there's a button that you can use. Build a market here. These guys are done. Build a market and then build a temple. And then in another market, we're going to have them build another caravan because we're short one. We're already at that limit. We need, boom. We'll run out of research soon. There we go. Dragoons, other stuff. All right. 3s are ready to go back. So we're going to send them back into the same spot. Ideally, we need to get them around and in between here so we can hit their wealth economy. They're taking attrition damage because they don't have a supply wagon with them. Ah! We stopped another civilian. What was the result?
They're just going to prep it.
Alright, so that was effective. Again, we killed a bunch more civilians. That guy's getting stuck in there. Get the hell out, buddy. Alright, we should probably do this. And now, where's my spy? There's my spy. Oh, look at the lucrative things. He's building the Colossus. Oh, he's building his own people, his own stuff, his own things. I don't like that. General for this main defensive army. And where are my cavalry? Can these light cavalry raid anything? Probably not, actually. They're going to stay back here. Put them in the stable. We probably could use some heavy cavalry. Just in case. And then we're probably going to build a forward city over here once we get the next civic level. Still taking our sweet time to build Versailles. Let's hit to the Industrial Age. Now, heading to the Industrial Age, I build a bunch of civilians. Maybe not so many, because I can't find any. Ah, perfect. There's one as well. Just build a tower there to guard that. Alright, these guys are done. We're going to try to go around this time. We're going to... Oh! Hey, they finally built a city here. We can hit it, I think. We can build a siege factory here once they're done. Let's build Angkor Wat, or should we wait until we get... We're almost there. Let's build the next wonder will be the Enlightenment Age. Or the Industrial Age wonder. Jesus, we're taking their damage and they're taking ours. Okay, that's not great. These guys are still going to continue their plan to go around here. And we've got oil! Ah, we took their city. So now we're doing all the healing we want here. I think they had some scouts. Oh, they did. They had some damn... Why can't I select my barracks? There we go. They are currently dealing with killing my... or bribing my infantry. We killed the spy, I think. Where's my spy? Hiding down here. Oh no, I ran into a castle! I didn't know there was a fort over there. I wasn't paying attention. See what I get? Alright, we've still got one more oil thing over here to build. Now, what kind of wonders do we have available? Ah! Statue of Liberty reduces attrition damage on enemies, but the Taj Mahal increases your building hit points by 100%! Well, that's crazy. That's crazy good. Taj Mahal it is. I have tons of resources, and we should probably include a machine gun in there for fun. Did I include a button to find my... I can't remember if I have a button. bound to find my spies. Find spy is currently bound to semicolon. What button am I not using that I could put this on? Is F1? Like, is that a thing? Oh, that'll work. Here's one. Let's put that there. That's my only spy, apparently. And putting an informant in does not reveal them, I don't think. They're repairing that city. They should probably build a temple here. Oh, it's not mine yet. It's assimilating. That's right. That was one of the cool things about this game, too. Age of Empires, you just destroyed everything. In this, you capture cities and all the buildings in them. And then some things like coal appear later. Now we've captured it. I don't even need that. I've got so much metal income. We'll probably try to go to modern age soon. I could use another university. Did I build a guy over here? I did build a guy over here. Let's build a university, and then you're going to do something else for me. I still have one of these guys chilling back here? How is he not dying to enemy, Huh. Government change to capitalism. So these guys are working. I have 4. This might put me in the running for a win. I mean, I could probably crush them militarily right now, but I want to try to go for this wonder victory I've been working on. Although, territory might come in first. Still need 1912. We're close on that. Oh, they started the pyramids. That'll slow me down. Engineering is good, increases my building's hit points and such. The 4th Cavalry is now the 3rd Cavalry, 3rd Armored. I don't know if he's even in... No, he's not even in Industrial Age. I think he got rid of my informant there. Now we have it. Okay. So we're going to send these, Oh, are these actual tanks? I think they're actual tanks. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. You also got air units and other such things. So we've finished that. What can we get next? The Kremlin! We need a lot more food, so let's go buy some. Oh, I got a wonder victory in 3 minutes. Should we also crush them? 5th Artillery. Oh, he's starting the Terracotta Army. What a douche. He's going to stop my... Oh, he already stopped my Wonder Victory by building the pyramids, but I'm pretty sure that when I finish the Kremlin, it'll start it again. And my oil income is lower than it should be, so let's fix that by building oil refineries. Each oil refinery increases oil output in the entire nation by 33%. Oh, hey, you can't do this. That's my territory. I want it. Oh no! Oh no! Artillery run! Artillery run! I wanted to go take this from him. Set these guys on raid so they'll kill civilians. Uh-oh. I need to keep a commando with them so we can counter espionage, I guess. So we captured the city because we had more infantry in the area. Alright, that you can see there's an enemy spy there. She's trying to bribe my tank. I'm sending my commando out there to do something about it. She successfully bribed my tank, but he's throwing a knife! Almost done with the Kremlin. Oh, but he's done with the Terracotta Army, huh? Can we bomb the Terracotta Army to death? Do we destroy it? Does that do what we want? Destroy a priceless wonder of the world? And we have these guys on Kremlin completed, which starts our wonder victory again. Meow, brr, brr, meow. Bombers coming in. Pew, 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 pew. Goodbye. Ooh, 350 metal for killing that. And we might get a territory victory sometime soon. Kill the general. Oh, that's right. Commandos, by the way. Special forces, they become snipers later in the game. That's kind of cool. Your scouts basically turn into snipers. Now, did I have my spy still chilling around here? It's way back. Oh, when you build the Kremlin, you get a free spy. Three minutes. We can beat that. Here come the bombers. Pew, pew, pew. And they will continue their bombing runs until I tell them to stop. I don't really... If the enemy was even in the correct... Oh, they are. They do have air. But apparently they haven't built any yet. Or any fighters. We can go to the Information Age! I have no other research to do. Can you go find oil? Hey, there's oil there. That's the closest oil, apparently. And now we got a territory victory. Also ticking down. Can we beat the 133, though? I don't think we can beat the 1 minute, because I lost all my siege weapons. Ah, we hit the Information Age. You know what else we have been neglecting? Nukes. We haven't talked about this yet, but nukes? Nukes are amazing! How do you handle nukes in any of these games? They're too strong. They're too strong. Whoever gets nukes first wins. That's how life works. One of the only reasons we haven't had like a nuclear war, in a sense, is because the Americans and the Soviets got nukes about the same time. And in fact, who got nukes first in World War II did win World War II, right? So how do you balance that in a game like this? The answer is you take into account nuclear Armageddon, right? You take that into account. You say, listen, you got nukes first. You can start throwing them around and using them to crush your opponent and destroy their cities and massacre their armies. But if you do, you're going to lower that Armageddon clock. There's a timer, there's not a timer, a counter that starts at roughly 8, 10, 12, depending on the number of players, I think. And every time a nuke is used, that clock goes down. And it'll show up in the top right corner over here once the first nuke is launched. And if that clock gets to 0, the game ends with a nuclear winter and nobody wins. So that provides the following incentives. If you're ahead and you're closer to winning the game, maybe you use one nuke. But you can't just build. I mean, there's ramping costs on nukes, by the way, where each one you build is more expensive than the last. And it doesn't matter if you've spent the previous nuke. They always cost more. That's the only thing in the game where the ramping cost has A, no limit, and B, doesn't go down once you lose things of that type. So nukes always cost more. That's one. And two is if you use 3 or 4 nukes to try to finish your opponent off, you better be sure it does finish your opponent off. Because if they catch up to you before you can win the game, and they launch 4 or 5 of their own nukes, they can just cause you to lose. So you have to be more careful, more discretionary with what you're doing when you choose to use nukes. That's a brilliant way to balance it in this game. If you use them recklessly, you could lose the game as a result. And there's all kinds of people that like want to use a mod that bans that or prevents that counter, just raises it to 999. And I'm like, what is the purpose of that? Do you want the game to be a race to see who gets to nukes first? And then you've got this cool thing. When you've finished all research at the library, you get an ultimate research you can choose. Artificial intelligence causes all your units to be produced instantly. Or global prosperity increases your commerce cap from whatever it is to 999. Now, I have a ridiculous commerce cap because I have a rare resource that gives me an increase of the commerce cap, and I took the plus 50 from the from the senator hero, and I think I probably built a wonder that also increased my commerce cap or something like that. But stealth bombers and advanced fighters are available also if you choose this. This one is world governments. All victory timer, city assimilation, and enemy capital eliminations are instantaneous. And then this one is missile shield. Enemy missiles will not explode in your territory. Armageddon clock turned back by 2. So that's a way that you can help deal with this. But all of these cost a ridiculous amount of knowledge. And I think you can only pick one. I'm not certain that you can have more than one. I don't know why I don't hear all of the sound effects. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's nothing really here to adjust. We're gonna get the capital down. Can we do it in 8 seconds? Everybody, shoot this as fast as you can. 2, 1! Ah, we got it. Okay. Anyway. So, we talked a lot about how freaking amazing this game is. And we talked a little bit about the resources earlier. There's one more thing to the resources, which is oil, which I kind of briefly jumped in and did right when we hit Industrial Age. Oil, you don't know exactly where it's going to be. There's these rocky patches. Units can move through rocks, but buildings cannot be placed here. Starting the Industrial Age, oil deposits can be discovered amongst rocks, and light, gunpowder, and modern infantry receive a 33% defensive benefit in these rocks. So you've got these patches of rocks, but not all of them have oil. Here's a patch of rocks that doesn't have oil. So you can guess where oil is going to pop up later, but you can't be 100% sure. When it does, you have to send units out to build an oil well, which gives you a certain amount of oil income. I think it's plus 20 each or something like that, because you can build so many fewer of them. Usually it's a lot less. So it's another asymmetrical. It doesn't work like any of the other resources, because then the boosting building, these, not smelters, oil refineries, normally smelters only boost the outcome of the mine in the city where it's built. And your granaries only outproduce the farms in the city where it's built. But refineries boost your entire nation's oil production by 33%. You can also build them in water, by the way. On ocean maps, you'll have oil wells in water, which you have to defend. And what that means is refineries have no research to boost your oil capacity. You just keep building refineries. You build more cities and more refineries as you go. Now let's talk about one more thing. The game has some of the best statistics you've ever seen. It has some of the best you've ever seen in a game. You've got your score that differentiates out all these different things. You've got your military that tells you units killed, units built, units lost, largest army, buildings built, raised, etc. You've got economy stats on how much total was collected. You've got how many ruins bonus. Well, the AI did a better job early in the game exploring than I did. Maybe he built an extra scout and he microed it better. I don't know. Research tells you how early they got to various ages. We outpaced them later on. Glory, who had most citizens, most caravans, most scholars, etc. Speed. Well, the computer doesn't have APM, but it tells you what your player speed. I'm usually around 50-ish when I'm playing for real and not talking and pausing all the time. So that's basically your APM. This is the number of hotkeys, mouse clicks, etc., that you've used, times when you zoomed in and zoomed out. Here's the graphs that show you when people got to various ages. Here's the military graph. So it shows you, here's our first encounter in military. Here's our second encounter in military where he lost a bunch of territory. Here's a territory graph, resource graph, technology graph, and the timeline that shows you when certain cities were founded or captured in the case here. City captured, timer stopped. So there's a big battle going on there. Wonder built. It's just so much useful information. Then you can hit the playback button and you can watch the damn thing. You can save your playbacks. You can send them to people. You can see it from the opposing player's point of view. What did he do first? What did I do first? And you can follow, by the way, where that person's view was. It's showing you what I was looking at while I was playing. That's crazy. And then you can show the whole map if you really want to see that too. It's a triumph. It's an absolute triumph. Thanks for watching. I might I might do an actual for real game of this online and see if it's worth uploading the video of it if it becomes good. It's such a great game. Anyway, we'll see you around. I'm Bridger. Have a good one.